I guess I'll start by actually explaining kind of what Mythos is, even though I'm pretty sure everybody in this room knows about as much as me. But Mythos is what we started calling a frontier model. So it's the latest cutting-edge model from Anthropic, who are the people behind Claude Code, etc. But the interesting thing is, whilst they were testing Mythos, they decided that they found it was very effective at finding vulnerabilities and exploiting them in code. And they were so worried about this, they withheld it from the public. So they said, we're not going to release this. And instead, what they did was they started something called Project Glasswing, which is bringing together various vendors and creators of what they called critical infrastructure, so they had a chance to run Mythos on their own stacks and fix the issues before either Mythos or equivalently capable models became generally available. Now, this has attracted a lot of media attention, and there has been some pretty crazy and interesting headlines. So we see Yahoo led with an AI nightmare waiting to happen. New York Times has been on top of this, and they talked about AI models setting off global alarms and emergency responses from central banks and intelligence agencies. A lot of reports led with just the fact that banks and enterprise companies are having sort of emergency meetings about this, and that, that definitely is a thing from like what we're hearing at Chainguard and so on. Then there were some even more breathless pieces. There were things from, this one is one of my favorites, 6 reasons Claude Mythos is an inflection point for AI and global security. So this article went as far to say that things like power plants and water stations are at risk because of Mythos. Another one that was equally apocalyptic was this opinion piece in the New York Times, which said, Anthropic's restraint is a terrifying warning sign. And this is the one that talked about profound geopolitical implications and directly compared the effects to the Iran war. Which, yeah. This is my favorite, though. Claude Mythos Preview has officially frightened the British. So I think this might be a reference to the stiff upper lip trope. But yeah, it made me laugh anyway. Now, I see a few sort of groaning as I've gone through this, because a lot of people feel, well, this is just, marketing hype to sell Anthropic's latest model, and it's just a marketing stunt. The other end of the argument is, we're heading towards some sort of cybersecurity apocalypse. It will surprise no one if I tell you that the truth is probably somewhere in between. First off, I would say if this is like entirely a publicity stunt, Anthropic have done exceptionally well. I don't really think many tech companies are capable of manipulating the media that well. Maybe they are. On the apocalyptic side, I don't think like nuclear power plants are going to shut down tomorrow. Hopefully they have reasonable levels of security. Their code presumably isn't in the hands of attackers to run through LLMs, and they're hopefully not directly connected to the internet. That being said, at Chainguard, and my own opinion is that this is pretty serious, and we do need to be taking it seriously. Whilst I don't think nuclear power plants are about to go, there was an incident a few years ago. I don't know if many of you remember this, but there was Colonial Pipeline. Now, Colonial Pipeline is a company that does much like what it sounds like it does. They run pipelines for fuel in the United States. And they were hit by a ransomware attack. And that actually caused the pipelines to shut down. And I think they actually paid the ransomware in the end. And there were fuel shortages in the United States directly as a result of this attack. I don't know if we can expect more of those, but it's certainly a thing that has happened in the past. But let's take a step back and just kind of look at the facts of what the model actually is, and, well, at least according to Anthropic's reports. So the first thing is, it is a step forward, right? They're claiming that the model has gone from 66% to 83% on the CyberGym evaluation. That's like a cybersecurity scenario test. So that's quite interesting. It's definitely improved. but it's not 100%. So it's not like solving everything and exploiting everything. What also does seem to be certainly true is that it's found thousands of vulnerabilities. And that's including major projects, so things like Linux, things like Firefox, Windows, and various other projects. They claim to have made 1,596 disclosures to open source projects, and that was a few weeks ago, so presumably it's more now. And at least 88 of those have resulted in a CVE or GitHub security advisory being assigned. And presumably within Project Glasswing, there's a whole bunch more vulnerability reports going on that we're never going to hear about because they'll just be silently fixed, especially in proprietary software. But the one thing I want people to take away and focus on is the point of the major leap is in autonomous exploit development, as they put it at Anthropic. And what they mean is it's not actually finding the vulnerabilities that they've made a major leap with Mythos. It's in its ability to exploit them. So existing LLMs will still find vulnerabilities, but they won't be able to chain them and exploit them in the way that Mythos can. So that's what they're saying that the leap forward is in. And that's, that sounds scary, but in a way it's good news. Because it means you can use current LLMs and run them on your own code to find the vulnerabilities and fix them before the frontier models or nefarious actors with access to frontier models have a chance to use them to build exploits. So I would really recommend that everybody here who's responsible for a code base or software engineering team, if you're not already, consider running LLMs on your code bases to try and find vulnerabilities. And that doesn't have to be a big complicated thing. There was a talk by Nicholas Carlini, who was an Anthropic engineer who was doing some of this Mythos stuff, and to find one of the vulnerabilities in Ghost, this is more or less the entire prompt. You're playing in the CTF, find the vulnerability. That's basically all he said to the engine, and it successfully did something. So even just very simple things can work. Now, it can get more complicated. You have harnesses. You do need to manage a context window on larger projects and point it at certain files and so on. But even doing something simple can be very effective. Other thing you should be looking at to try and mitigate these risks is supply chain security. Now, that might not be too surprising for me to say that, given that I work at Chainguard, which is a supply chain security company. But open source software is particularly at risk here because the code is public, so anybody can run LLMs on it. And what I really think is going to be the fallout is that we have to keep things updated, okay? Like, there's no more running on old versions of software. We have to be running the latest patched versions because the time between a vulnerability disclosure and those vulnerabilities being exploited has really compressed. Like, they can use LLMs to help write these vulnerabilities now. And there's even a report by Mandiant that said it's gone negative, as in vulnerabilities are being exploited before the official vulnerability disclosure comes out. So, yeah, there's one thing you take away, it's keep things up to date. And don't just think about your code bases, also think about everything around it. It's like your build systems. One thing that has come out in a bunch of recent attacks is GitHub Actions. So think about keeping your GitHub Actions up to date and how you keep them secure and pinning and things. And we are hearing a lot of panic and urgent meetings at the level of banks and enterprises and so on, and that is definitely happening. What I would urge you all to do is not panic, but do take this seriously. I would urge people to take action if they can, if you are responsible for projects or software engineering teams, etc. It is, in my opinion, a serious situation, but it is also manageable. Do think about running LLMs on your code, and do think about supply chain security. I'm going to leave it there, and hopefully Andy will talk more about the open source side of things.